What's going on? What's going on? Welcome back to the channel, One Man's Walk. I am your host, Gamal, back at you with another one. And so what we have for you today is that new AZ project, Doe or Die 2. So a little backstory real fast. So AZ, Doe or Die, you can see here, I actually brought my little props today. Asiatic, Pieces of a Man, and that Doe or Die. Part 1, this CD right here, I actually had it on cassette tape too. I bought the cassette tape and then I ended up buying the CD later on in life. But this is one of the very first CDs that I had that was clean your house music to me, right? And so I actually was cleaning my house as I was playing that CD. I remember the day I bought it, I had to clean the bathroom. My parents were like, you better clean this bathroom. And I had just bought the AZ on cassette tape. Popped it in, started letting it play, and I mean from raw and cut, Give Me Yours, Ho Happy, Jackie, Rather Unique. That stretch was ugly. And then obviously the Sugar Hill, and then the Mo Money, Mo Murder, Mo Homicide with Nas. It was such an amazing CD. I think the only song I don't like is the very last one, which is the remix of the Sugar Hill. Wasn't a fan of that, but that CD is amazing with some of the nicest lyrics you're going to hear. And he was just so smooth and flowing over it. Then Pieces of a Man was just an amazing follow-up CD. I had 9 lives. I don't see it now, so maybe I might have sold it. I'm not even on front. I sold a ton of CDs, and that might have been in the ones that I sold. And then obviously Asiatic, which I really love. That's during the Blueprint phase. Boom. But let's go ahead and get into it. So I want to say this. So I have a couple thoughts. Definitely have a couple thoughts. We're going to jump into it. We'll dive into it. Now, with this project, I do want to say it sounds like an AZ project. I do like the fact, though, that I needed time to digest it, per se. I don't like doing reaction videos. And so you won't see me doing a reaction video because sometimes my initial ears listening to it, I don't know what I could be doing at the time, but my initial listen is not always, it jumps out at me. And so I normally like to take a week so I can kind of properly digest, play it a bunch of times, listen to it in different places. I'm listening to it at work. I'm listening to it at home. I'm listening to it in the truck. I'm playing it in different venues. I'm playing it on AirPods. I'm playing it on Bluetooth speakers. I'm playing it just on my phone. I'm playing it through Apple's wired headphones, like all type of ways to try to get a full feel and a full vibe of what's going on. And so I'll be honest with you, when I first heard the project, I was like, okay, I like it, but there's this thing that's off on it. And I'm going to get into that. I'm going to explain what I mean. So when I first played the project, I want to say off the break, it sounds like an AZ project. Now, I do want to say this. I am not a fan of the part 2s to classic albums that I personally loved. Like, I'm just never been a fan of that. I don't think that Blueprint 2 was good. There should have just been Blueprint and that was it, because 2 and 3 are misses to me. I don't think that there should have been a Cuban Links 2. Cuban Links 1 was amazing. I felt like it should just stay that way. And that's not to say that any of these projects are bad per se. I'm just saying, like, once you've put it in the vein of something that I already knew from my childhood or teen years or whatever that stuck with me is amazing, my expectation is sort of different in how I'm going to view the new one. And so when a new one drops, and while it may be solid, it never reaches the nostalgia feel that the initial one had when that came out. And so I feel like it's better just to continually do new projects rather than trying to make a part 2 to something that was beloved. Busta did it recently with Extinction Level something. It's ELE. I don't know what the full title of it is, but ELE. And I was like, I loved the first one. I think it had some amazing records. I think that's the one that had the Janet song on there, which was nuts. It had this Swiss beat on there, which was nuts. That's the one that had the J and DMX record, which was nuts. And so it had some really great records. And as much as I love MOP, on the new one, the record that MOP has with him, I didn't like that either. That's the one that there is the video for. And so that one is not one that that grabbed me as it wasn't a favorite. You know what I mean? And so like I'm not always a fan of the whole let's make a part two. So I'm already going in with that mindset of, okay, what are we doing here? I will say this nice simple album cover that he did for this, and you know, it'll be up here or down here or somewhere I'll put it. Nice. I like that. It was very simple. So already I'm like, all right, cool. And my homeboy Donnie, again, you know, I reference him a lot, but that's my guy. He I didn't even know this AZ project was coming out, and almost daily he was hitting me with clips from the AZ project. He was sending me the YouTube videos for the Jaheim song, the actual first song on the CD called Just For You. And so I kind of was getting a feel for it, but I wanted to hear what did the full project sound like. And so on initial listen, these were my thoughts. It sounds like an AZ project, which is good, because I think AZ has three really great really good projects. I think Do or Die is his best album. I think Pieces of a Man is one of the best sophomore albums I have personally ever heard. And I'm talking about when I think of all rappers in the follow-up albums, two albums that are classic or near classic or whatever how you want to view that, many of them do not have follow-up albums that is on par as Pieces of a Man is. 9 Lives, which me and my homeboy Donnie differ on. He loves that one. I personally think the best record on there is the Foxy record, in which Foxy had the best verse. And that CD is not as memorable a CD to me as it is to him. And then we have Asiatic, which, while it's definitely in the Blueprint, it obviously was inspired by Blueprint because of the feel of all the samples and stuff. It's a really good project. I don't know how many people paid attention to it, played it. I know I played it a ton. Asiatic got so much burn from me. And so I have the other ones too, the other projects he put out, AWOL and all those projects, but I didn't love them like I loved out of the first 4 albums, the 3 out of the first 4 albums, right? And so, but it sounded like an AZ project. It didn't sound like sometimes you have rappers from your childhood who you loved who are trying to garner this new audience, and so they kind of sprinkle in some of that new stuff to try to get new fans and the younger kids. He didn't do any of that. He gave us an AZ project, and it said he almost came out like an Earth, Wind and Fire or one of those Isley Brothers classic groups that's not really putting out music that sounds like new R&B. They know their fan base. They know their fan base is going to eat it up when they put it out. And so they just put out their music. I love that. I respect that. That's what I wanted. That's what he gave us. Love it. So then I'm listening to the beats. The beats on here sound like AZ beats. Some of it kind of gives that Do or Die feel. So so I was like, okay. It gave some of that feel to it that the Do or Die gave. And so like it had the soul in the beats. Everything sounded like New York hip hop. We don't have anything that doesn't sound like New York hip hop. For forever, I thought AZ was a Queens dude because of how he was rocking with Nas. But he's a Brooklyn dude. Shout out to the bridge. You already see it, the Brooklyn Bridge behind us. It sounds like New York. And I love that vibe. It feels like New York. So then I'm listening to the features. So the features, he got Idris Elba on there, Stringer Bell. I guess I can't even say Stringer Bell these days. Idris Elba on there. He's talking at the very beginning. He has Ross on there, which is my personal favorite record. I think that record is nuts, 10 times over. Dave East is on there. Dave East always gives a solid verse. Conway and Wayne are on there. That's a really legit record as well. T-Pain is on there. I ain't even gotta say nothing about T-Pain. T-Pain always is a hit. Personally, to me, I think T-Pain, what he brings to the table when he gets on a record, he completely changes the dynamic of a song. And so I'm always gonna rock with T-Pain. And then my personal guy, Jaheim, who I think that's my favorite R&B singer. Like it's not even close. Like Jaheim is to the point. I remember we were at the Poconos, me and Kristen, one of our anniversaries. And we went in Best Buy, and I happened to see a Jaheim CD on the shelf as I was walking by, and I did not know it. And I was like, oh, is this new? Picked it up and bought it. I don't need to hear a single when it's Jaheim. I know Jaheim is going to be fire. Jaheim, please put out a CD so I can get a proper review of it on here. So all of that was fire. So then I'm like, let me get to the one thing, and hopefully I explain this right for why on a first listen I was not as high on the record as I am now. And I think my ears kind of just needed to adjust it to this. AZ sounded slightly off. Slightly is a strong word. I don't mean off like he was offbeat, like when you hear, and sometimes, you know, like Freeway or Silk the Shocker would have that really offbeat cadence. Like that's still part of their flow. And so I don't really call it offbeat like they couldn't catch the beat. I mean, that was a deliberate how they rhyme, their rhyme scheme, their cadence. AZ, and I don't know if you catch this. If you have ever recorded music, as I have before, obviously nowhere near the level of music, the discography that AZ has put out, like nowhere in that. We're not even in the same universe, right? But when you are recording, or if you're editing, and I've done tons of edits because I edit all the time with stuff, you know, he sounded like he was like a 10,000th of a second off, where you know you're trying to nudge the beat to get it directly on, and it's still on, but it still feels like it was slightly off. It was like, I don't know how to describe this, and hopefully I'm making it sound how I'm hearing it in my head or how I heard it on initial listen. Almost, I think of an all-star athlete, right? A perennial all-star who there is some slight slippage in his game. Now, he can still go out there. He's still averaging his 20 plus. He's still getting you his boards, his assists or whatever, but just a slight hint of that athleticism is not there like it was in his youth. That is sort of how he sounded to me on the initial listen on the beats. Like it was slightly off. Again, like a 10,000th of a second off. The beat, like he didn't ride it. When you're listening to Doe or Die and you listen to these records, how he's riding the beat, it didn't feel like that. It sounded slightly off to me. And I was like, it feels like he's slightly off. It's not off to where it's like this noticeable, oh my gosh, this guy's not catching the beat. None of that. But knowing AZ, and that's why I brought these CDs out, and how I knew how AZ effortlessly used to just flow on beats and just ride the wave. And so knowing that that wasn't the case, it kind of threw me, and I was like, nah, I don't really like it. So Donnie was like, yo, the CD's fire. And I was like, yeah, but it sounds off. And when I said it, he was like, yeah. And then I was talking to my homeboy, Chris, and I'm like, Chris, it sounds like he's like 10,000th of a second off. And he said, that is it. Because in his head, he was like, something was there that, but once I got past that, and I'm like, okay, cool. I kind of get it. My ears have adjusted to this. Let me go ahead and play it now. I still think the CD sounded much better to me. That was the only drawback I had. His lyrics are still there. His flow is still there. Again, like I said, just a 10,000th of a second off is how it felt, is how it sounded in my ears. But as far as the actual project is concerned, it's good, right? So let's go ahead and get into it. So the very first track is called This Conversation with God. I don't know how many, if I'm gonna go through all of them. I don't love all of them. There's a good amount that I love, and then the rest maybe I'll just kind of talk through because I don't love everything, right? So the very first thing is Conversations with God he has, and that's really just Idris Elba talking on the record. It's cool. I like it. Kind of gives a nice little feel to it to see where we're going. And so I'll bring it up just a little bit. So that's what we have there. So that's cool. And then we have the Just For You, which is the first actual song on the CD. This is pretty good too. The only problem I have, and because I do not curse, I won't play like the curse words and stuff on the channel either. And so trying to figure out where to cut and stuff, that's the only part that sucked with this, knowing the extra work I was gonna have to do. But here we go, Just For You. I'm gonna just bring these up a little bit so we can get a feel for the records. It's a solid record. I think this is cool, and the hook is like, just for you, with a little sample in there. And so that was cool. Then we get to the Jaheim record, which is my record right here. Hold on. Jaheim voice. Typical AZ. It sounds, this is nuts. There's actually a video for this as well, so you guys get an opportunity, go ahead and check out the video. Video is pretty smooth, and so that's a fire record right there. I like that one. I like that one a lot. And so again, Jaheim on a track, his vocals. You know, he used to work really well with Jada when they were doing that on I think it's on the third Jaheim CD. I never remember what the record is, but the way he flows, nice. And who else was using him great? Cameron. Cameron has the record they did the video for, which I'm super mad never made it on the actual album. So it was like a single leading up to Purple Haze, and then is not on any variation of Purple Haze, which was mind-boggling. But they do have another project on Purple Haze, which is actually my favorite record on Purple Haze. So, hey, it's still a win, but I would have, you know, again, and Cam didn't even play that at the verses, but I digress. So then this next record, Keep It Real, I'm gonna have to skip up because it's definitely cursing in the hook, but I want to play part of the song because this is where we get into the first sample that I recognize. Smooth. You can hear the beat, but this beat right here, this is actually the same one that Pac used, the Do for Love, the what is that? The Caldwell, What You Won't Do for Love. So that's the same one. That's what that sample is. That Do for Love. I like that. Yeah, Bobby Caldwell. It's just a nice flip. It's a nice flip on it. Yeah. The next record, this is my favorite record on here. The Jaheim record is fire. The Keep It Real record is fire. It just had the cursing in it, so that's why we had to cut it short. But then when we get into this right here, this Ross record, and I got some thoughts on this too real fast as I let this play. When I first heard her voice, so I want to say this. When I first heard her voice, I was like, man, I wish they had put somebody else on here to sing. I didn't like it. I'll be honest with you. On the first listen, which is again why I don't always like to do reactions, because sometimes you got to sit with things. Sometimes some things you sit with still don't sound good, right? There were songs on that Drake that sat with me for the week I still wasn't on board with. But some things will grow on you. Now, that young lady's, she's not featured on it. It just says featured Ross. I don't know who's actually singing. But the her vocals sort of sound like Peaches from No Limit. So I'm gonna let her play real fast one more time. She sort of sounds like Peaches from No Limit. I don't even know if Apple Music has No Limit on here. I'm gonna see real fast. But when I think of the Moby Dick, oh, it is on here. So Gangsta Harmony Moby Dick is on here. We're going to go right to the record with Peaches, which is Could It Be, which is probably one of my favorite records on the Moby Dick. I love No Limit. I'm going to the concert. And so, let me see here. So when you hear the vocals, let me pull this up some so we can get to this, get her singing. This is her. I actually think she sounded like that, like her voice. And I'm so used to hearing Peaches because I have the whole No Limit catalog. Just like I bought CDs, I got them all. CDs, cassette tapes, I bought them all. Everything from 97 to 2000, minus like Little Romeo and Little Soldiers. I even have the NBA basketball album they put out. I did them all. And so, but this record right here, we're going to get back to this Ross. There's Never Enough. So we speed it up. I want to get to the ending of the Ross. I almost had it. Pointed at your person was the point intended. So when you really about your business, come and see the beacon. I love that line. Whenever you really about your business, come and see the biggest. You know, kind of nice a play on from when he was doing the record. I think it's the one with Kels, with him and R. Kelly, where he was like the biggest. Or was that the T-Pain one? No, T-Pain one, because T-Pain had the record, The Boss. So that's the T-Pain one. But I like that. Whenever you really about your business, come and see the biggest. And at the beginning of his verse, he kind of gets into he's trying to buy up all the churches and the chicken spots. And I don't think he meant churches like he was going to buy like churches. I think he meant churches chicken. He was trying to buy up all the churches and the chicken spots because he owns Wingstop is what it's called, Wingstop. Really good, by the way. Wingstop is really good. Just takes forever. I hate the 30-minute wait to get the wings. It's ridiculous, but I digress. So the next record on here is this record called Different. So I didn't know, I figured that was a sample, but I didn't know what sample that was, right? But I knew, okay, this is a sample that I'm hearing. And so I did some little research because, you know, I believe in research. This is actually a sample. This record is called You Make Me Want to Love Again by Vesta Williams. And so that's exactly what that is. This right here. So the very beginning part that he took, that's actually what he took. Let me see. I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, so that's the actual beat, and so that is what he actually took. And so that record is cool. I like that. Different. The next record he has on here, I'm definitely not gonna play a ton of all the language and stuff like that, but that's this Ritual record with Conway and Wayne, and that's on the when I rhymes like the city is mine, play who, no label ain't give me a dime, came through like if you grateful, this how you really should shine. That is an Alchemist beat. One, you know it when you hear it. That sounds like a Griselda beat. Two, you know it when you hear it. Three, I did not expect to hear Wayne on here. Now, obviously, Wayne's name is featured, so I know Wayne was on here, but it was very interesting hearing Wayne. I thought Wayne had a really legit verse, and on not on the low, this year or year, however you want to view that, Wayne has given some solid verses. The verse he gave Nicki on her mixtape project was nuts. The mask on, mask off part. The verse he gave Drake on Drake's project was fire. This verse is fire. I don't like the whole part about I like my drugs intense. I could have done without that, but that's just me. That's a personal preference thing. But he ends it with Conway gives a solid verse. Now, when I heard this, the more I've heard it, the better I feel about the Conway verse. But in just initial listen, I'm like, Kanye has given out way harder verses than this. This was probably one of the okay verses, and I don't hear many verses I personally think Conway gives that are just like okay. This wasn't a great verse. It wasn't a verse that I'm like, okay, man, I'm about to know this. It was cool. And so, but I thought Wayne gave a solid verse on here on this record. Again, with the fact we don't have an edited version, I don't have to go back and forth trying to figure out where the curses and stuff are. So we just playing small portions of it. And then we have, I do like how Wayne Doe ended it. He said, I've been, how do you phrase it? He said, I've been listening to AZ and the Firm since you was a worm. And I was like, oh crap, that's right. Because AZ was out before Wayne was out. And so Wayne, being a fan of hip hop, even in New Orleans, could have been a fan of AZ, Nas, The Firm. He was a fan of Jay-Z. And so I'm like, oh man, that makes sense. And so, but again, these features, none of them feel forced. None of these features feel out of place. You know what I mean? Like, okay, T-Pain and AZ, okay, what's that gonna sound like? But I know T-Pain and the flavor he brings on records. And because we're 5, 6, 7 songs in, and we are just hearing AZ, I'm not expecting anything to sound wild. And so it feels And then I feel like with these records, these are all people who he has to like and people who have to like him. Because I don't know how many people are going to be checking for the AZ Project or know about the AZ Project and things like that nature. But he still has Ross, who's huge. He still has Wayne, who's huge. And so to be able to get some of these features just is a commemoration and a flowers moment for just how dope AZ is. That people are like, I might have grew up listening to this guy. I remember the Life's a B verse. I remember Do or Die. I remember Pieces of a Man. And so it's like throwing him a solid. And I loved it because these features don't feel forced. The next record is a Dave East record. And of course, Dave East, who was a student of rap. By this point, if you on a Dave East thing, you know Dave East is a student of rap. Dave East continues to give a solid verse as he does here. The record is called Blow That SH. And so he does sample in the hook, not sample, but of course, it wouldn't be a New York record without somebody referencing the big line. The rings and things you sing about, bring them out. It's hard to yell. And Big's line was with a barrel in your mouth for barrel. And on here, I think it's with the Mac 12 in your mouth. I don't even know. I guess they got Mac 12s now. I don't use guns, so I don't know. But we're gonna try to see if I can speed it up a little bit. Oh, I got that. Oh, he was gonna say that blow that, so I paused it right there because we're not gonna catch that in there. But it's a solid verse, solid song. The next record is called Bulletproof. That was okay. That's like it's a song about his girl, I think, being in love and kind of holding him down. I didn't really like the beats. I never really played it much. Check Me Out is a Pete Rock record. Again, these all sound like AZ records. That's what this is, a true to AZ album. I am okay with this being a Do or Die too. Okay with that. Because this feels like an updated version, but this is the closest I've heard to an album of a person making a part 2 to something that was classic or near classic in the first time around, and really, really zoning in and me feeling like, okay, yeah, I like that. And so, cause like, okay, I love Joe Budden Mood Music too, but I didn't think Mood Music 1 was, I feel like that's a series. I think the Diplomat mixtape, the Dipset, whatever the one they got with K Slay, it's like the volume 5, like 5 volumes of it. Part 2 is probably my favorite one, but again, that's a mixtape. Oh, you know what? I will say Diplomatic Immunity 2 is really good. But it probably didn't need to be Diplomatic Immunity 2 because it doesn't feel like the first Diplomat. The first Diplomatic Immunity felt like it was like Dipset was Cam, Jim, and Jewels. And then they sprinkled in a couple people. You got to hear Rumkasa. You got to hear a couple people. Whereas, I think Hellrell's on that one too. He might have had a jail verse. But then in part 2, that feels like the second era Dipset. Because Dipset had 2 eras. You had the era on the rock, and then you had the era where they really helped bring Wayne to a national level. I don't care what nobody said. The Dipset were instrumental in New York and East Coast really loving Wayne. You have that era on where it's Hellrell, it's Ryder, it's 40, and that group. Even Jaja had her moments. And so the second Dip really felt like embracing the newer members of Dipset. That's a really solid project too. So I will say that too, but that doesn't feel to me like a part 2 to Diplomatic Immunity. It could have been called something else, honestly. This feels like a part 2 essentially of Do or Die. It actually does. I will say that. And so I'll skip over. Time to Answer is cool. Found My Niche is cool. Let's go ahead and just jump on this What's Good so you can hear T-Pain. Speed it up. From the ground and down since day uno. So there you have it. Solid project. I'm not gonna give it the clean your house music, but it's close. It's a really good project. It has some really good records. This is a solid project. Good 7.5 or so. I would give this. This is good. This is good. This is definitely worth your listen. This is probably going to be one of the best CDs that come out this year. Not only is it probably going to be one of the best CDs that come out this year, it's probably going to be a slept-on one that people aren't even going to know too much about. I haven't heard too much when I was on YouTube and looking and stuff like that, but this is a solid project right here. And again, AZ just proves that AZ is AZ. Gotta love him. Gotta love him. And so that's it. That's all I had. Just wanted to talk with you. We get into this AZ. As always, hopefully everyone is having a wonderful, blessed, productive, stress-free day, weekday, weekend, whatever it is. Till next time.